You look at a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel and you see this sweet, soft, almost cartoonishly cute little dog. Big round eyes, silky ears, the kind of face that makes people on the street stop and go, "Oh my God." And yeah, they are that cute. That part's real. But here's what nobody tells you when you're scrolling through breeder websites at 2 in the morning. That cuteness, it was engineered over centuries. And the engineering came with a cost that, honestly, most people buying these dogs have no idea about. The Cavalier goes back to the 1600s. King Charles II, that's where the name comes from, was so obsessed with these little spaniels that he allegedly wrote a royal decree saying they were allowed in any public place, including Parliament, which is a fun story, great cocktail party fact. But the breed you see today, it's not really the same dog, not even close. What happened is, somewhere in the 1800s, breeders started pushing for a flatter face, rounder skull, bigger eyes. They wanted a look, and they got it by shrinking the gene pool down to almost nothing. We're talking about a breed that was essentially rebuilt from a handful of dogs in the 1920s, a handful. And every single Cavalier alive today traces back to that tiny foundation. So you've got this incredibly narrow genetic base, and when the gene pool is that small, problems don't just show up, they concentrate, they become baked in. You're not rolling the dice on health issues with a Cavalier. The dice were loaded before the dog was born. There's a condition called Syringomyelia. Most people can't pronounce it. Most breeders won't bring it up. And it affects, depending on which study you read, somewhere between 50 and 95% of Cavaliers. Let that land for a second. 95%. What's happening is the skull is too small for the brain. That's it. That's the whole problem. The back of the skull didn't develop enough room, so the brain gets pushed down into the spinal canal, and that blocks the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, which causes fluid-filled cavities to form in the spinal cord, which causes pain. Sometimes mild, sometimes not mild at all. Dogs with this, and again, we're talking about the majority of the breed, they'll scratch at their neck and ears obsessively, sometimes without even touching the skin. It's called phantom scratching, and once you know what you're looking at, it's hard to watch. They yelp when they're picked up. They avoid being touched on the head. Some of them can't sleep because lying down makes the pressure worse. And the kicker is, this isn't a disease that's snuck in. This was selected for. Breeders wanted the dome-shaped skull. They wanted the flat face and the big forehead and the wide-set eyes. That whole look, the thing that makes a Cavalier look like a Cavalier, is the same thing that's compressing the brain. The breed standard and the deformity are the same feature. You can't separate them. I mean, what do you even do with that? The thing people love most about how this dog looks is the thing that's hurting it. Mitral valve disease. Every single Cavalier owner needs to know those 3 words, because this breed doesn't just get heart disease at a higher rate than other dogs, it gets it earlier, way earlier, and it gets it worse. In most breeds, mitral valve disease is an old dog problem, shows up at 10, 11, 12. The valve wears out, starts leaking, heart works harder to compensate, and eventually it can't keep up. Sad, but it's aging. That's what happens. In Cavaliers, it starts at 3, sometimes younger. By the time a Cavalier is 5 years old, roughly half of them already have a detectable heart murmur. By 10, if they make it to 10, it's close to 100%. And these aren't mild murmurs we're talking about. This progresses fast. The heart enlarges. Fluid builds up in the lungs, the dog starts coughing, gets winded on short walks, can't settle at night because it can't breathe lying flat. And you're watching this happen to a dog that's 5, 6, a dog that should be in the middle of its life. There was a study, I think it was out of the Royal Veterinary College, that put the median lifespan of a Cavalier at something like 10.5 years, which sounds okay until you realize a healthy small breed should be hitting 14, 15 easy. They're losing 4 or 5 years, and they're not losing them at the end. They're losing them in the middle, to a heart that was never built right in the first place. That's the part that gets me. It's not sudden, it's slow, and you see it coming. Cavaliers have this thing called Syringomyelia, SM for short, and it's rough. Basically what happens is the skull is too small for the brain. Not by a lot, just enough. The brain gets crowded at the back, blocks the flow of spinal fluid, and fluid-filled pockets, cavities technically, start forming in the spinal cord, and it hurts. A lot, apparently. Dogs with SM will yelp out of nowhere, middle of the night, dead asleep, and they just scream. No warning. They'll scratch at their neck and ears obsessively, this phantom scratching thing where the paw doesn't even make contact, air scratching, which sounds almost funny until you realize it's because their nervous system is misfiring from the pressure. The numbers on this are wild. Some studies put the rate of Chiari-like malformation, that's the skull too small part, at over 95% of the breed. 95. And somewhere around 70% end up developing the actual fluid cavities by age 6. So we're not talking about a rare condition. We're talking about a condition that is, kind of by definition, the breed. And here's what gets me. A lot of owners don't even know. Their dog yelps at night, they think it's a bad dream. The scratching? Maybe allergies, ear infection? It can take years before someone connects the dots and gets an MRI, by which point the damage is, you can manage it, pain meds, sometimes surgery, but you can't undo it. This isn't a defect that's snuck in. This is what happens when you breed for a skull shape and don't ask what fits inside it. That flat face, those big round eyes, the soft, almost baby-like expression. That's the whole pitch, right? That's what sells the breed. And I get it. They're absurdly cute. Genuinely one of the most appealing faces in the dog world. But the face is the problem. Cavaliers are brachycephalic. Not as extreme as pugs or bulldogs, sure, but enough. Shortened skull, compressed airways, soft palate that's too long for the space it's in. So you get snoring, which people think is adorable, and you get labored breathing, which people somehow also think is normal. It's not. It's a dog whose airway doesn't quite work the way it should. And the eyes. Because the skull is flattened and the eye sockets are shallow, Cavaliers are prone to all kinds of eye problems. Corneal ulcers, dry eye, cherry eye, where the tear gland just pops out, literally protrudes from the corner of the eye. Some of these dogs go through multiple eye surgeries before they're 5, but nobody talks about this at the breeder's house. You see the puppy, the face does its thing, and you're done. Sold. And look, I'm not blaming people for falling for it. That's what the face was designed to do. Literally centuries of selective breeding to trigger exactly that response. The problem is the design brief. Someone, at some point, well, many someones over many generations, decided that the ideal Cavalier face was flatter, rounder, softer, and every millimeter they shaved off the muzzle came with a trade-off that the dog has to live with. Not the breeder, not the buyer, the dog. "75 degrees. That's about where it starts getting dicey for a Cavalier. which, if you live anywhere south of, I don't know, Vermont, is basically called summer. The brachycephalic thing plays into this. A dog cools itself primarily by panting, right? Air moves over the tongue, through the airways, moisture evaporates, temperature drops. It's a pretty elegant system, unless the airways are narrowed and the soft palate is floppy and the whole cooling mechanism is working at maybe 60% capacity. Then it's not elegant, it's a bottleneck, literally. So you've got a dog that overheats faster than most breeds and cools down slower. That's a bad combo. Add in the fact that Cavaliers are prone to heart disease. Mitral valve disease hits something like 50% of them by age 5. And now you've got a cardiovascular system that's already under strain, trying to regulate temperature on top of everything else. And they don't know. That's the kicker. A Labrador will go lie in the shade when it's had enough. A Cavalier will keep playing, keep followed, keep trying to be near you, because that's what they do. They're companion dogs down to the bone. They don't self-regulate the way a more independent breed might. So it's on you, every time. I think people hear sensitive to heat and think it means, like, don't leave them in a hot car. Obviously. But it's more than that. It's watching them on a 78-degree walk. It's skipping the afternoon outing in July. It's knowing that the dog who wants to be next to you at all times is also the dog whose body can't always handle the effort of getting there. You leave the room for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, and they act like you've abandoned them, like full-on panic, whining, pacing, scratching at the door, and everybody laughs it off, right? Oh, Cavaliers are just so loyal. Yeah, that's not loyalty. That's a dog having a genuine psychological meltdown because you went to pee. I think people really underestimate how bad separation anxiety gets in this breed. And I mean bad. We're talking destructive behavior, non-stop barking, dogs that won't eat when their owner's gone. Some of them literally injure themselves trying to get out of crates. That's not cute. That's, it's kind of heartbreaking, actually. And the thing is, it's baked in. Cavaliers were bred for centuries to be lap dogs. Literally bred to sit on a person. That's the job. So when you take the person away, the dog doesn't have a job anymore. It doesn't have a purpose. It just has fear. And nobody mentions this when they're showing you pictures of puppies curled up on the couch looking all adorable. The breed standard basically rewards clingingness. Affectionate, gentle, eager to please. Okay, sure. But flip that coin and you've got a dog that cannot self-soothe, cannot be alone, cannot function independently for even an hour without spiraling. And most owners, they make it worse without realizing it, carrying the dog everywhere, letting it follow them room to room, never teaching it that being alone is fine, survivable, not the end of the world. By the time the anxiety shows up, and it will show up, it's already deep, already a habit, already the dog's entire operating system. People forget the Spaniel part. They see the big eyes, the silky coat, the floppy ears, and they think, okay, this is a stuffed animal that breathes. It's not. It's a Spaniel. And Spaniels were bred to flush birds out of bushes. That instinct didn't go anywhere. So you're walking your Cavalier off-leash, which, by the way, a shocking number of people do because the dog seems so calm and sweet, and a squirrel bolts across the path. Gone. Your dog is gone. No recall, no hesitation, just prey drive kicking in like a switch flipped. And they're fast. Faster than you'd think for a 16-pound dog with a smushed face. This catches people off guard because nothing about the Cavalier's marketing, and yeah, I'm calling it marketing, suggests a dog with chase instinct. The breed clubs talk about temperament like it's all cuddles and gentle companionship, and it mostly is, until something small and furry moves quickly in their peripheral vision. I've read accounts of Cavaliers bolting into traffic over a rabbit, over a bird, over a leaf blowing the right way. It's not aggression. It's not bad behavior. It's 400 years of breeding that says when the thing moves, you chase the thing, and no amount of couch time rewires that. The frustrating part is how inconsistent it is. Your dog can ignore squirrels for 6 months straight, and then one Tuesday, boom, full sprint into the neighbor's yard. You can't train out instinct. You can manage it, you can leash your dog, but you can't delete it. It's in the code. Those ears. Everybody loves those ears. Long, silky, gorgeous, and basically a petri dish strapped to each side of the dog's head. Cavaliers have some of the worst ear anatomy of any breed. I mean, it's almost comically bad from a health standpoint. The ear flap is heavy, sits tight against the skull, and creates this warm, dark, zero airflow environment right over the ear canal, which is exactly what bacteria and yeast need to throw a party. So they do, constantly. Chronic ear infections are so common in Cavaliers that a lot of vets basically treat it as a given, not a risk, not a possibility, a when. You're not wondering if your Cavalier will get ear infections. You're wondering how many rounds of medication you're going to burn through this year. And here's what gets me. The infections aren't always obvious. Some dogs don't scratch. Some don't shake their heads. They just quietly deal with it. You might not catch it until the smell hits you, or until you flip the ear and see all this dark, gunky buildup. By then, it's been brewing for weeks. The maintenance is relentless. Weekly cleaning, drying after every bath, every swim, every walk in the rain, checking for redness, checking for smell, checking for discharge. And even with all that, some Cavaliers still get recurring infections that just won't quit. They go on antibiotics, they clear up for a month, and then it's back. Nobody tells you this at the breeder's house. They show you the puppy with the beautiful floppy ears, and you think, God, that's cute. And it is. It's also a vet bill waiting to happen. Cavaliers have these big, round, gorgeous eyes. It's like half their whole appeal, right? That soft, soulful look. But those eyes, they're a ticking clock. By the time a lot of Cavaliers hit middle age, 5-6 years old, they're already developing cataracts. And not the kind where you squint a little more in bright light. Full-on clouding, progressive. The lens just goes. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it once it starts. But cataracts aren't even the main thing. The big one is dry eye. Keratoconjunctivitis sicca, if you want to get technical. Basically, their tear glands stop producing enough moisture. And when that happens, the surface of the eye dries out, gets irritated, gets inflamed. Left alone, it ulcerates. You're talking about a dog that's in constant low-grade discomfort, pawing at its face, squinting, getting recurring infections, and it doesn't fix itself. It's a management thing. Eye drops, sometimes multiple times a day for the rest of the dog's life. And then there's curly coat dry eye syndrome, which is, okay, this one's kind of rare, but it's almost exclusive to Cavaliers. It's a congenital thing. Puppies are born with rough, curly coats, and their eyes just never produce tears properly from the start. It's genetic, recessive gene, and breeders have known about it for decades. I think that's the part that gets me. None of this is new information. The breed clubs know, the vets know, the genetics are mapped, and yet you still see litters being produced from lines with known eye issues because, I don't know, the dog has a nice head shape, good markings. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. You pick up a Cavalier puppy and it feels like nothing. 8-9 pounds of silk and warmth. You'd never guess the skeleton underneath is already kind of compromised. Patellar luxation is the big one. The kneecap slides out of its groove. Sometimes to the side, sometimes it pops back on its own, sometimes it doesn't. And in Cavaliers, it's weirdly common. Some estimates put it at around 25 to 30% of the breed, depending on the study. That's not a freak occurrence. That's a quarter of the population walking around with knees that don't track right. Early on, you might just see a little skip in their gait. They're trotting along and then hop. They kick a back leg out for a second, then keep going like nothing happened. Owners miss it all the time. Or they think it's cute. It's not cute. It's a kneecap dislocating and relocating in real time. And then there's hip dysplasia, which, look, people associate that with big dogs, German Shepherds, Labs, Goldens, but Cavaliers get it too, at rates that are honestly kind of shocking for a dog this size. The hip socket doesn't form right, the joint gets loose, cartilage wears down, and eventually you've got a dog that doesn't want to jump on the couch anymore, doesn't want to do stairs, slows down on walks, and you're thinking, well, he's getting older, but he's 4. The kicker is that a lot of this stuff is graded. Vets can screen for it, breeders can test before they breed. Some do, a lot don't. And so the cycle just keeps going. This is the one that's hard to talk about. And honestly, it's the one that should have changed everything about how this breed is bred. It didn't, but it should have. Syringomyelia, SM, happens when the skull is too small for the brain. That's it. That's the whole problem. The Cavalier skull, over generations of breeding for that flat face and round head, has gotten smaller, but the brain didn't get the memo. So the cerebellum gets pushed down toward the spinal cord, blocks the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, and fluid-filled cavities, syrinxes, form inside the spinal cord itself. The pain is, you can't fully know, right? But the signs are pretty clear. Dogs scratching at the air near their neck and ears. Phantom scratching, they call it. Not actually touching the skin, just clawing at nothing because the nerve signals are so scrambled that their body is telling them something's wrong, but they can't find it. They yelp when you pick them up. They scream, actually scream, when they turn their head the wrong way. One study, this was Rusbridge and Knoller back in 2004, found that over 95% of Cavaliers had some degree of Chiari-like malformation, 95%, and around 50% had actual syrinxes by age 6. These aren't outlier numbers. This is the breed. And the thing is, there's no cure. You can manage it, gabapentin, sometimes surgery to decompress the skull, but you're buying time, not fixing anything. The dog lives with it. Some dogs cope okay, some don't. Some just deteriorate. I think what bothers me most is how long we've known. This isn't a new discovery, and yet here we are. Six. That's how many dogs the entire modern Cavalier King Charles Spaniel population traces back to. 6 founding dogs. And if you know anything about genetics, you already know where this is going. So after World War II, the breed was basically gone, almost extinct, and a handful of breeders in England decided to rebuild it from scratch, which sounds noble, right? Except they did it with a tiny, tiny gene pool, and then they bred those dogs to each other, and then bred the offspring to each other. And then, you get it, generations of this, decades of it. The result is a breed that came into the world preloaded with problems. We're not talking about a dog that might get unlucky and develop something. We're talking about a dog where the odds are stacked against it from birth. Mitral valve disease, that's the big one. It's a heart condition where the valve just degrades, stops closing properly. And in Cavaliers, it doesn't show up at 12 or 13 like it does in other breeds. It shows up at 5, 6, sometimes younger. Some studies put the number at over 50% of Cavaliers having a heart murmur by age 5. 50%. That's not a risk factor, that's a coin flip. And here's what gets me. This wasn't some mystery. Breeders knew, geneticists flagged it. There were breeding protocols proposed in the 90s that could have slowed it down. Most breeding programs just didn't adopt them because the dogs were selling, because the look was right, because, I don't know, honestly, because fixing it would have meant admitting the thing was broken in the first place. A friend of mine, well, not a friend exactly, someone I know online, posted their Cavaliers vet bill from a single year, $4,200, and the dog was 3. That's not an outlier. That's kind of the baseline. Like, if you're getting a Cavalier and you're budgeting for normal dog expenses, annual checkups, vaccines, maybe a dental cleaning, you're not even in the right neighborhood. You're in the wrong zip code. The heart thing alone can run you thousands. Echocardiograms aren't cheap. The medication, if you catch it early enough to manage, that's a monthly cost for the rest of the dog's life. And that's just the heart. We haven't even talked about Syringomyelia yet, which is a whole other nightmare. MRI scans to diagnose it, $1,200, $1,500, sometimes more. Surgery, if it comes to that, we're talking $5,000 to $8,000 for a condition that might come back anyway. And then there's the eyes. Cavaliers are prone to cataracts, dry eye, retinal issues. The ears get chronic infections because of the shape. Those gorgeous floppy ears that everyone loves are basically humidity traps. Skin allergies, luxating patellas, the list just keeps going. Pet insurance helps, sort of, but a lot of policies won't cover breed-specific hereditary conditions. Or they will, but with a premium that reflects the fact that your dog is, statistically speaking, a walking claim. I've seen people quote monthly premiums of $80, $90 for a Cavalier, which, do the math, that's over $1,000 a year just for the insurance, before anything actually goes wrong. You leave a lab alone for 4 hours, you come back to a chewed shoe, maybe a knocked-over trash can. Annoying, but whatever. You leave a Cavalier alone for 4 hours, you come back to a dog that's been in a full-blown panic since the door closed. Separation anxiety in this breed isn't like, oh, the dog gets a little sad. It's visceral. It's pacing, whining, scratching at doors until their paws bleed. Some of them stop eating. Some of them just bark. Not regular barking, that desperate, repetitive, almost rhythmic bark that sounds like a car alarm nobody can turn off. Your neighbors will know, trust me. And the thing is, it's not a training failure. You can do everything right. Crate training, gradual departures, the whole desensitization playbook, and still end up with a Cavalier that falls apart the second you're gone. Because it's baked in. These dogs were literally bred to be on someone's lap. That was the job. For centuries, that was the entire point of the breed. They were companion dogs for royalty, bred specifically to want to be near a person at all times. And now we act surprised when they can't handle being alone in an apartment for a workday. I think people underestimate how much this limits your life. You can't just go to dinner. You can't run errands for 3 hours without a plan. Doggy daycare, dog walkers, working from home. Something's gotta give, because the dog sure won't. And if you force it, if you just leave and hope they'll adjust, you're not training resilience. You're just making a small, anxious animal more anxious, which, honestly, feels pretty lousy when you think about it. You ever watch a Cavalier just sitting there, doing nothing, and they're already breathing like they just ran a mile? That's not a quirk. That's a structural failure. Their skulls are too small for their brains. I mean that literally. The back of the skull, the occipital bone, it didn't keep up with the breeding, so the brain is basically being squeezed into a space it doesn't fit in, and the soft palate, too long for the airway, the nostrils, narrowed. The whole respiratory architecture is compromised. That's the polite word for it. The honest word is broken. And look, this isn't some rare defect that shows up in a few unlucky dogs. This is the breed standard, the thing breeders are selecting for. That flat, sweet, round face is the thing causing the problem. You can't separate the look from the damage. They're the same thing. What gets me is how normalized it is. You'll see forums, breed guides, even vet websites that talk about Cavaliers being prone to respiratory issues like it's a footnote, like it's hay fever. It's not hay fever. It's a dog whose airway was engineered to be too narrow because someone in the 1800s thought a flatter face looked cuter. And the worst part, well, one of the worst parts, is that a lot of owners don't even realize their dog is struggling because the dog was born like this. It's all they know. They're not gasping compared to yesterday. They're gasping compared to, a dog that can actually breathe. But the owner's never seen that version of their dog. So it just becomes normal, background noise, literally. Cavaliers will follow you into the bathroom, they'll follow you to the fridge, they'll follow you back to the couch, and then look at you like you just came home from war. That's the reputation. Velcro dog, lap dog, the one that just wants to be near you at all times. And that's true. It's completely true. But here's what people miss. These dogs were bred from spaniels, actual working spaniels, hunting dogs. And that drive didn't just evaporate because someone put them on a silk cushion in a palace. It got buried, suppressed, ignored. But it's still in there. So you've got this dog that looks like a stuffed animal and acts like a shadow, and meanwhile, there's this whole other gear nobody told you about. They'll chase birds, they'll flush rabbits if you let them near one. I've read accounts of Cavaliers locking onto a scent trail and just gone, deaf to recall, completely checked out of the cute lapdog persona. And this is where it gets kind of sad, honestly. Because most Cavalier owners picked this breed specifically because they wanted a calm, low-energy companion, which they are 70% of the time. But that other 30%? That's a dog that needs to move, needs to sniff, needs to do something with its brain. And when that need doesn't get met, and it usually doesn't, you get anxiety, separation issues, destructive behavior that everyone blames on the dog being too attached, when really it's a spaniel going stir-crazy in an apartment. Nobody talks about this. The breed profiles all say adaptable to apartment living. And sure, they'll adapt. Dogs adapt to all kinds of things that aren't good for them. Nine to 14 years. That's the number you'll see on every breed profile, every breeder website. Every "Is a Cavalier right for you" article, 9 to 14. And technically, that's not a lie. Some Cavaliers do make it to 14, a few, somewhere. Statistically, they exist. But the average, the real honest-to-God median lifespan, it's closer to 9, maybe 10 if you're lucky. And the cause of death, more often than not, is heart failure. Mitral valve disease, MVD. Basically, the valve in the heart starts leaking. The heart works harder to compensate, and eventually it just gives out. And this isn't some freak genetic lottery. Studies, real peer-reviewed studies, have shown that by age 5, roughly half of all Cavaliers have some degree of MVD. By age 10, it's almost all of them, 90-something%. 5 years old. That's not an old dog. That's a dog in what should be the middle of its life, already developing heart failure. And breeders know this. They've known for decades. there are screening protocols, there are recommended breeding guidelines, and a lot of breeders just don't follow them because following them would mean not breeding most of their dogs, and that's not how you run a profitable breeding program. So when someone tells you their Cavalier puppy comes from health-tested parents, ask which tests. Ask for the cardiac clearance. Ask the age of the parents when they were cleared. Because a heart clearance at 2 years old on a breed that develops MVD at 5 is basically meaningless. It's a checkbox. It's not a guarantee. It's barely even a gesture. In 2022, Norway did something that kind of broke the dog breeding world. A court ruled that breeding Cavalier King Charles Spaniels in their current form violated the country's animal welfare laws. Just flat out said it. Breeding these dogs as they exist today constitutes cruelty. And the reaction was wild. Breeders across Europe lost their minds. Kennel clubs called it overreach. Some people treated it like the government had declared war on dog ownership. But if you actually read the ruling, and I mean the ruling, not the headlines, it's pretty measured. The court looked at the health data, looked at the prevalence of MVD and Syringomyelia, and basically said, you cannot, in good conscience, keep producing animals that are this predictably sick. That's it. That's the argument. Now, did it fix anything? Honestly, not really. The ruling was narrow. Enforcement has been murky. Breeders in Norway found workarounds almost immediately. Breeding across borders, importing puppies, that kind of thing. And nowhere else followed suit. The UK didn't, the US didn't, the FCI didn't issue new standards. So in practical terms, it changed very little. But symbolically, I think it matters more than people give it credit for. Because for the first time, a legal system, not an activist group, not a documentary, not a viral tweet, a court of law looked at a dog breed and said, this is suffering by design. We're not okay with it. And the fact that the breeding world's response was mostly outrage and not, reflection, that tells you something. Maybe the most important something in this whole conversation. When a system gets called out, it doesn't self-correct. It circles the wagons. So here's where I land on all of this. And it's not a comfortable place to land. I love these dogs, genuinely. Anyone who spent 5 minutes with a Cavalier gets it. The way they just kind of melt into you. That soft, trusting, slightly dopey face. They're wonderful. And honestly, that's the whole tragedy of it. Because none of what we've talked about is just bad luck. The tiny skull, the heart that gives out at 5, a dog waking up screaming at 3 in the morning because its own brain doesn't fit in its head. That's not random. We did that. People did that. Somebody looked at a dog and decided the face mattered more than the brain sitting behind it, and then bred for the face anyway, again and again, through a gene pool so narrow it's basically a puddle. And the part that really gets me, the bit I keep circling back to, is that the Cavalier has no idea any of it's happening. It doesn't know its heart's giving out. The headache it's living with, it's got nothing to compare it to. Far as it's concerned, that's just life. And it still wants to climb into your lap and fall asleep on your chest. It trusts you completely. And we held up our end of that by handing it a body that's at war with itself. Norway looked at the whole picture and said, no, you can't keep doing this. And I go back and forth on whether an outright ban actually fixes anything or just shoves it all underground. But you know what? At least somebody finally treated it like the problem it is. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you don't get one. That's not my call. People love who they love. But if you do, go in with your eyes open. Ask who bred it. Ask about the parents' hearts, the MRI results, all of it. Don't hand your money to the people pumping out cheap puppies for a fast sale, because that's the engine keeping this whole thing running. These dogs deserved better than what we built for them. They still do. You need to be a good parent and take care of your dog religiously.